I was gonna do this class closer to the end, but a lot of you guys wanted to see this class in particular, so here we go. We're finally going to be covering monks. They came from your favorite expansion, Kung Fu Panda. Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalrim. In this video we'll be talking about monks. We'll be taking a look at what monks are like in BFA, as well as my first impressions. Now I did ask a bunch of people on stream, how thoroughly would they want me to cover every single spec? Of course, I am interested, and I think a lot of you are, about the DPS specialization of every single spec, but my question really relied on, what do you think about the healer specs? Should I even cover them at all? Should I just talk about them briefly, or should I be as detailed as possible? I've been mixing it up a little bit here and there, but I've been taking time to really learn healers and tanks, at least on a base level, to tell you guys exactly what they're like. And I think in this video I will go over them very briefly, what I like, what I didn't like about them, but I will try to keep it more or less brief because I think a lot of you want to see what Windwalkers are like. Anyway, let's get on with the video. The first we have is a Windwalker, and what can I really say about Windwalker besides they didn't really change too much? Off the bat I can say if you enjoyed them right now in Legion, they are more or less similar in BFA, at least for the beta. Their talents is where kind of a lot of the playstyle comes in. So they're a lot like Enhancement Shamans or maybe like Retribution Paladins, where they have a basic rotation that is more or less the same from Legion, but their talents is where you can really just add a lot of complexity. If you want to play Windwalker, kind of how it was in Legion, minus the artifact weapon, you can choose a lot of the talents that keep the gameplay very samey, but the gameplay is never going to be truly the same. What I kind of liked about Windwalker, and I think what was the best, is the more abilities I added into my, I guess, utility, the better it felt to play. To be able to add a few more abilities, like a different type of jab that costs 10 less energy but generates 3 chi, adds a little bit extra to the gameplay. Then of course you got a lot of the mobility and defensives, and Blizzard kind of wants you to make a decision whether you want to be completely tanky as a Windwalker monk, or have more mobility. So it's kind of like a choice of what a Demon Hunter is like, because Demon Hunters have a few tanky abilities. You have your blur, you have your darkness, but then part of your mobility is, or part of your defensiveness is the fact that you have a lot of mobility. I mean, you can run away from a fight. That is an option, and you can use it to your advantage in order to not take damage. So in a way, you can treat it as mobility or defensive. So mobility and defensive are almost kind of interchangeable, and depending on situation, you really get to pick. But a lot of these choices are more competitive. Another thing you lost is the artifact weapon. So let me list everything you lost with the artifact weapon. This is mostly going to affect PvP, but also some parts of PvE. Your teleport heal, no longer a thing. Your artifact weapon ability of full burst, no longer a thing. And your ability to reduce the cooldown of your main burst ability, Storm, Earth, and Fire, as well as Serenity, is not present. So now you have to kind of basically pick. You have to pick between Storm, Earth, and Fire. That summons all these clones that kind of like, I mean, they're clones, they're NPCs, like they can make mistakes sometimes, but they'll basically follow the same rotation that you normally would use and play around with that. Of course, you need to summon them, then you need to hit the button again in order for them to start attacking your main target. And I know monks complained about it before, how they should be like in a way for you to just start single target or start AoE and maybe some kind of split within abilities. So you have that and 2 charges of those. So if you want to play with NPCs, you can. But if you want to go for that reliable, amazing Serenity, you just won't be able to use it every single minute. You'll be able to use it every minute, 50 seconds. So if you want to go for Serenity, for that insanely incredible guaranteed burst damage, your big one-shot wombo combo, you'll have to basically sacrifice the cooldown. So now they're trying to kind of make it a little bit more competitive and a little bit more of an option. Overall, I feel like Monk feels better, again, as I said earlier. The more abilities you throw in, the more different things you throw in into the toolkit, the better it feels to play. But of course, you also don't want to GCD yourself too much out. For example, an ability like Energizing Brew, it feels pretty weird. Energizing Elixir or Energizing Brew, whatever you call it, the ability where you gain a bunch of chi and energy on GCD feels kind of wonky, and can definitely feel wonky, especially when you're trying to get some PvP or PvE burst going. When you're really trying to get your rotation going, you don't really want to have a lot of abilities stopping you. So, okay, pop this ability, then this ability, then this ability. And I found Monk felt a lot better, especially Windwalker, when you grabbed as little of GCD buffs. But if you grab an ability that's like a hit on the enemy, and that incurs the GCD, that on its own feels a lot better to play than just having to buff yourself up and then having to throw you off on the GCD. Overall, I felt like Windwalkers were pretty great. I like the mobility, I like the self-healing of it, I like the defensive nature as well as the damage. And I was even able to test it for PvP. before the honor talents, and even then I was gonna say that Windwalkers were pretty great, but with the access to honor talents, like honestly, this should be almost rank 1 in competition. They shouldn't be beaten by anybody in PvP. They should feel pretty damn good. But they felt pretty great even without the honor talents, so I feel like they are a great spec. I like the mobility, and I still love the fact that they have that same rotation. Another aspect of Monk I really enjoy is the cooldown reduction mechanic that they added to them. So now your Rising Sun Kick and your Fist of Fury have a cooldown reduction that comes off of your Blackout Kick. So every time you use Blackout Kick, it reduces the cooldown of your Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury by a little bit. So Blackout Kicks feel really worth to use. Because currently right now in Legion, when I'm using Blackout Kick, I'm always feeling like, oh man, as soon as Rising Sun Kick is available, as soon as Fist of Fury is available, I'm just gonna go ham, because those abilities really do deal serious damage. Without the 2-piece or 4-piece for Windwalkers, Blackout Kick just feels kind of like almost like a wasted ability in a way. And I don't want to say that in a sense that Blackout Kick is a bad ability, but now it feels a lot more exciting and a lot more interesting, a lot more fresh. So not only do you have a plethora of talents that can change your rotation, not only do you feel fairly similar, now you have this cooldown reduction mechanic to really keep you on your toes, and you still have that fun mastery where you can combo abilities or same abilities back to back to back. Overall, I think Windwalkers are great, so if you're somebody who enjoyed him in Legion, chances are you'll like him plus more in BFA. Now let's talk about tanks, and oh my god, does Brewmaster feel amazing. I am somebody who doesn't play tanks. I'm somebody who doesn't even play healers. For the most part, I am a channel who mostly checks out DPS classes. But as somebody who's been paying attention to a few videos on tanks and what's going on, and trying to kind of cover and review tanks, at least in baseline, Brewmasters so far feel like the best tanks in the game right now. Holy crap. Compared to other tanks, bears feel pretty slow, but they feel pretty reliable, but a very slow playstyle because GCD and whatnot. Then you have Protection Paladins, where GCD is... it's okay. I actually don't really mind Protection Paladin GCD, but I see what people say. Ability like a self-heal for Paladin being on GCD, which feels like an emergency ability, and something that should be as an emergency cooldown at any moment, so it really should feel like it's off GCD at all times. Having that ability on GCD makes you feel less reliable, it makes you feel less active, it makes you feel less faster as a tank, it just kind of slows down the gameplay. Demon Hunters, everything is on GCD, but at least you're playing a different playstyle. You're not playing a defensive playstyle where it's all about reducing damage. No, it's about smacking the enemy as hard as you can. The harder you hit them, the more you heal, the more of a tank you are, and that's really what it comes down to. The only tank that I really haven't checked out is Protection Warrior, but that one I've been told feels terrible. Brewmaster felt perfect, and I feel like they might be just the best tank in BFA. Now, I might be calling shots a little bit early, but they feel so great, because it is beta, so it's early, they'll probably change a lot of things, but what makes them feel so good to play is your DPS rotation, where it kind of feeds them to some cooldown reduction for your defensives and main DPS and tanking abilities, and then your main mitigation, which are defensive abilities that play up to your mechanic. Your mechanic basically being, you never take a full hit. You can take, let's say, 50 worth of damage, like an enemy smacks you for a 50. And 20% of that 50 will always be a dot. So you never take a full hit, but then you have to deal with that dot. And your defensive mechanics basically play up to either being able to take more of a hit as a dot, so you can, I guess, let's say, take 50% of enemy's damage, and then you have this ticking dot that's a lot easier for healers to manage with, or you can simply clear a lot of that dot mechanic. So it combos really well together. But that's the baseline of what a Brewmaster is like. What the best part of it all is your defensive abilities are off GCD. Both of those abilities are very powerful, whether one being clearing off the damage you would have taken, or increasing how much damage you want to take as a damage over time, which combo really well together. You basically would increase one, and then you would clear with the other, and then increase with one and clear with the other. That is off GCD. So your basic rotation of how much damage you do, and your playstyle in terms of hitting the mobs and holding aggro, is on a different GCD than abilities that are used defensively. So if you're somebody who has great reaction time, or let's say somebody like a hunter decided to go face pulling more mobs, or a boss comes in and you're not sure how the mechanics are like and you're learning the fight, Brewmaster is a specialization for that. Because I feel like it's a specialization. If you have good reaction time and fairly decent game sense, you should be able to react to something that's happening on your screen. While the other tanks with the GCD, or everything being on GCD, it feels like you kind of need to know mechanics ahead of time to make sure that you're not caught out with your pants down. So that's why I really enjoyed Brewmaster. I felt like for the tank specialization, it was just as tanky as bears. It was just as tanky as Protection Paladins, but maybe it's not meant to be this way. My thought process here is maybe Brewmasters are not meant to be this powerful of a tank or this defensive. Maybe there's supposed to be a tank that takes a lot more damage than others, but because your abilities aren't defensive, it allows you a lot faster reaction time. As soon as things go bad, you need to have that reaction time as soon as possible. While others might be a little bit tanky, so for them it's fine to take a little bit more time to deal with the situation. So it simply could be one of those things. But when it comes to plain playstyle and just enjoyability, I honestly enjoy Brewmaster a lot more. I feel like there's so many things you can do in between your rotation. There's always a different way to approach the situation. There's always something you can do. And I like pressing buttons. So for me, Brewmaster, I felt like it just fit like a glove. It felt like a great tank specialization. And if you're somebody who's unsure about which tank spec you might want to end up playing in BFA, whether you want to raid for a group or do Mythic Plus dungeons, I definitely think you should take a look at Brewmasters once pre-patch comes out, unless you're already on the beta, and then please just try Brewmasters. You might enjoy them as much as I did. And then finally, we have the Mistweavers. I didn't really get to play the full playstyle of a Mistweaver. What I got to play is a basic healing playstyle, and I feel like a lot of the healers have more than one way to play now, especially with Legion and how a lot of players redefined a lot of the specs. It feels like there's a lot of capability for you to have some moments where you can come in and help your team do damage, almost like you're a Disc Priest. But with Holy Paladin, you can go in melee with melee wings, and it feels really, really good to play. Then you also have your Druid, which is something I had trouble with. It can be the most boring healer ever, where you just maintain HOTS, kind of like a Warlock would maintain dots on the enemy the whole time and not actually do any significant damage, just dot him up and let him kind of melt like this. So you can either do that, or you can put up HOTS and then go into cat form or bear form and just start doing damage to help out your party and maybe do a little bit of stuns, a little bit of CC, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So with Mistweaver, there is a bit of a mechanic where it comes to fist weaving. You do a little bit of melee damage that gives you a bit more mana. That mana allows you to cast more powerful spells in order to get out of situations. And then there's a few interesting talents where your melee abilities would actually kind of sort of go and heal your allies. That is something I simply just couldn't play. I was not able to because the tank that I had was a protection warrior. That's why I'm concerned about what protection warriors are going to be like, and warriors in general, once they're reviewing for BFA. But because of that guy was a protection warrior, I simply just couldn't stop healing him, so I had to spam chain heal into him. So my playstyle and experience with the short time that I have to make these videos, especially covering specializations that I'm not initially interested in, I think I get the general gist of what Mistweaver is like. I didn't get it through its full detail. It isn't something that really inspired me and made me want to try more, as with tanks and healers I really just do a single pass in a dungeon to really see just how they play more or less. Because, again, I'm not interested in healers on tanks. So, my experience, I wasn't able to go into full detail. That being said, the playstyle that I did get to play, which is like the boring playstyle, it actually felt pretty great. What was nice about it is just how much healing I was able to output, and how easy it was for me to swap. Now, when you think about a healer having to channel a heal into one target, how are you going to be able to get a heal to the tank, then a heal to DPS, then a heal to this guy and that guy? The GCD doesn't feel that bad. It is going to be something skillful for a lot of people to do in order to try to figure out who you should be hitting with your instacast, Soothing Mist, and how you should be using your abilities, and if there's probably, you know, since you get such an instacast capability from your Soothing Mist channels, how you should be using that. I think that's going to be interesting, and a lot of people that are used to Mistweavers, maybe from Mr. Pandaria or a Warlord's Dreamer type of playstyle, I think a lot of those guys will be pretty happy to see a return of this kind of playstyle, unless it's something they hated, and then that's a whole nother story. I think it's a pretty great spec. I think the things you are able to do with it is pretty interesting, and I feel like it actually felt more reliable as a healer than, let's say, a Restoration Druid. I actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit more. Again, it was a little bit kind of disjointed and a little bit far out because you're not really engaging with the fight as much, but that's mostly because I didn't really get to play the playstyle that I wanted. But if you're going for a melee playstyle, it might be a specialization that you guys might enjoy. That's really all I can say about it. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on monks. After seeing this video, do you think that this is something you would even want to play? Is this something you are interested in? And if you're somebody who's playing monk right now in Legion, are you gonna stay monk, or does it look like it's something you might be actually gravitating away from? Let me know all that in the comments below. I would also like to hear from anybody who tanks. I don't know any viewers of mine that really play tank for PvE, whether Mythic Plus or actual raids, you know, progression and whatnot. But does Brewmaster look pretty good, and are you concerned about any GCG changes whatsoever? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.